Open up your door. I can't see your face no more. Love is so hard to find, and even harder to define. Oh, open up your door, 'cause we've time to give, and I'm feeling it so much more. Open up the door. Open up your door.
Dober večer še enkrat. Torej, z Kim se bomo pogovarjali v angleščini, tako da če kdo potrebuje prevod, naj dvigne roko in bomo poskrbeli za to. So, we were just talking, Kim, outside, how we a lot of times think that our life is planned out from the beginning. And then things happen by chance. Well, like the life of Patricija and your life.
Yes. I mean, I'm always very amazed when people say, I always wanted to do this, or I planned everything out, because I think maybe a lot of us, things do happen by chance. And I thought it was amazing the way she left home. She just had to get away, and she left home, and then she walked into Laura, and then found that she could take photographs. I mean, it was just amazing. But she had to survive, you know. She had to find work. So, but I think what's interesting about Leticia's photographs, and she says it in the film, she took them, she couldn't say to people, I'm taking them with love, but there's something very beautiful and loving in her photos, even though they're very tragic. There is a sense that the person taking them feels sympathy with the people she's taking the photos of. I'm sorry, is it all right? Does everyone understand English? Does anyone that needs translating? How do you ask questions?
Ja, kot kar dvignete roko in prekinite nas in vprašajte. Res, Kim je imenitna sogovornica, ki se hitro odzove in ima rajše vprašanja publike kot novinarjev. Tako da, anyway, tell me about the first day of shooting Letizia.
Oh, that was quite strange actually. We went to meet her first, and she said, yes, I'll make the film. And then it's a shame she isn't here, because we turned up at the door, and she opened the door, and then she just went, go away, and shut the door. And it was like such a shock. I thought, oh no, we've come all this way, we've got the camera, we've got everything sorted out. And then we thought, well, we'll just go back the second day. And we went back the second day, and it was fine. But she was very anxious about it. She wasn't really happy about making the film. It made her very nervous, because I think she knew it was going to cause her a lot of pain. That it's a history of pain, it's an archive of pain, which she says in the film, you know, that she's frightened of her photos in a way, but it's her history, and it's everybody in Italy's history, and it's a history that I think it was very brave of her to tell it. She was just there with her camera, she had no protection, and it was an incredibly brave thing to do.
What were the first question? How did you introduce her? How did you open her, you know? Because she always said that. I mean, in these 2 days, that she made a lot of 4 documentaries about her, but this one is really the one about her life.
I think in a way, because I'd had an experience of living in, I lived in a family, I suppose a little bit like hers in a way, and I suppose a lot of us have lived in them as well, where the father's quite dominating, and you're living in a bit of fear of the father, and there's not an awful lot of love in the family, and maybe my parents weren't happy together. It's very much what she grew up in. And when you live in that sort of a family, it's you have to escape it. And I think this is what she was most. She feels very mixed about things. She said today she's proud that she left and she took the photos, and she's glad she took the photos, and she changed her life. But at the same time, she does feel bad about leaving her children and leaving her husband and putting her work first. And her children aren't in the film because they're quite angry with her. You know, I think there's a lot of, and it's not, I think she was absolutely right that they are their own people and they shouldn't be in the film because it's a film about her. And that's also a very brave thing to say. I don't want to talk about my children. I don't want to, it's they have their lives and I have mine. But that's not when many women say that, not many women can say, honestly, I put my work first. I always, when people say, oh, what's the best thing in your life? Oh, my children, I'm proud, I'm happy I've got children and they're the most important thing. But she's very clear, she put her work first. That was the most important thing for those 20 years. She kind of left everything else behind and it became her life. But it's a painful thing because I think you live with the guilt of it. Don't know what people think. I mean, there may be people in this audience that feel critical of her. I know a lot of people in Sicily feel very critical of her, particularly being with Roberto. That's an incredibly brave thing to be with Roberto and be openly with Roberto and to introduce him to everyone into her life. It's a big, big thing to do, especially when you're 85. But I think she's have to have a lot of courage. So now she's having a different kind of courage. She's not having courage against the mafia, she's having courage against society, against her family, against what people expect of her, and it's hard, And people find it hard to quite understand what's going on. I don't think they do even. They're doing something new that's, And actually I was telling Patricia that when we were talking to Leticia when she first talked about Roberto, she said, oh, well, it's, Roberto's homosexual. And then later she said, you have to change that. I don't want it in the film because it's not true. And he likes men who are trans men, who look like women. She says it in the film, and I think that's kind of, she's learning a new way of talking about things and of looking at things. And I think in my country, I don't know if it's happening in Slovenia, people are learning to talk differently about gender. And a lot of my friends not a lot, 4 of my friends now identify as they. And they're saying we're either gender neutral or they're exploring different ideas of gender, and this is what she's being introduced to now. She's discovering different ways of being with a man, different ways of being in the world, and I tell you, I admire her so much. I absolutely love her and I admire her. I think she's been a real inspiration to me of just a brave way of living, of just not pretending you don't care. Of course she cares about what people say, but saying I don't care and trying to live truthfully, it's a very hard thing to do, I think.
Any questions? No? So,
it's much harder to ask questions. If I'm in an audience, I never dare ask a question because I think I have a question and then I think, oh, it's going to sound silly, but it's so easy for me to talk, so.
So, did she ask you before finishing editing to remove something? Or
just the thing about her saying because she said it's not truthful. And I thought when she said that, I thought, oh no, what a shame. But then it was more interesting. She said, he likes men that are trans, so trans women or however, so that was the only thing. But she's nervous about some of the things in the film. She is. It's a really brave thing to open your life in that way, in that detail. I think when you come from such a traditional culture as well, I don't know much about the culture, whether these things whether it would be easy to be Leticia in Slovenia, whether her friends would approve or her family would approve, whether you have grandparents that are 80 and if you can imagine being with 40-year-old men, what you would feel. You know, it's kind of... And I was saying that when after we'd filmed Roberto, one of her family that I really love is her granddaughter, and she's called Marta, and I really love her. She's fabulous. She's a kind of generation that's come out of all of this, and she's really fun. And I said, I just met her, and I said, Marta, what do you think about Roberto? And she said, what? And I said, what do you feel about Patricija and Roberto? And she went, what? And she hadn't told Marta, you know, she hadn't told anybody. The first time she talked about it was then, in the gallery. And then, but I was so pleased because Marta went, oh, good for her. You know, she was really pleased. So I was really happy. She's got one ally in her family. You all need one, don't you?
So there's one question.
Sorry, how did you decide, how did you choose which pictures, which photos to show in the movie?
Oh, did everyone hear that was how we decided which photos to use? That was really hard because we really wanted to put more photos in. And actually in the end it was, this is funny as well, it was the ones that Letizia would let us have. It was so hard getting them from her because she's very strange about her photos. She loves them and she hates them. It's what she says. She's frightened of them in a way.
And how did she give you the permission for some photos based on her memories of the photos, or how graphic the photo was, or what did it show?
Okay, that's really interesting. You know the picture in colour of the boy?
Yeah.
That has never been seen before. It's her one. She started doing colour right at the end, and it was her one photo of a child, and it's in colour. And I remember when we had filmed her saying, you know, the mafia, they're not men of honour, they kill children. And we were talking about, I don't know if anyone knows about Giuseppe Di Matteo, the little child. There was a story which really haunted me. The mafia kept a little child who was a child of a mafia family, who was an informer, and they kept him in a hole for 2 years. And then at the end of the 2 years, they murdered him. And I really wanted, because that's the worst, the thing about the mafia is in films you never see that they...
There was a movie about this kid.
I heard about it, it was a fiction film, wasn't it? Yeah,
kind of
yes.
fiction, kind
Really
of,
good that they did that, yes. But I mean, Scorsese would never have, you know, the child in the theatre and so I said to Letizia, I think it's really important that we have this photo, because I knew she had it. And we sort of talked her into it really. But I think that's a very frightening photo. I think the thing is that if you're Letizia and there's a child and he's been murdered and there's blood, it's a very strange thing that you have to do. Your normal feeling would be, oh no, that's terrible, you have to cover him with a blanket, or that is your normal feeling as a human being. But when you're taking those photos, you have to split off the human being and you have to say, I have to take this photo, I have to witness what the mafia do, and you have to tell yourself to take that photo. But that's a very strange thing for a human being to do. Do you see what I mean? It's not a thing you feel good about in a way. You know, you feel you should cover that child and give him dignity. But so it was a mixed thing, but I felt really strongly we had to have the photo in the film. I don't know what people think. Maybe people think it's a wrong thing to have. I don't know what you all think. It's tricky. Some people maybe think it's too much, you know.
I think it was alright because it shows the reality of mafia. It shows what it really does.
Yeah. You know, I'm angry with all the Coppolas and the Scorseses. I am angry with them. You know, because I think they've done a disservice to Sicily. The bravery of the people standing up. You know, the ordinary people, it must be so frightening when you see what could happen to you. And that's how brave you are to keep fighting them. It's extraordinary. So in a way, you have to see that they're capable of doing anything. They're capable, there's no limits to what sort of barbarity they can do, you know. Am I speaking too fast, by the way? No, it's okay. I'm so impressed that you can speak English. It's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So how was walking around Palermo with cameras and Letizia in front of you?
Well, I think because we were just two women, and we're not really very intimidating. We don't look particularly, we didn't have a big van or anything. We were just walking around, and there's just two of us. I don't think people took us very seriously, and I think in a way that's quite a good thing. And even Letizia, it was. I'll tell you this because you'll see it's all part of Letizia. She thought, I think part of it was she did trust us and she thought we would make a film, but she didn't really think that the film was going to be ever finished or made. And there was another film director called Moresco, I don't know if you've heard of him, but apparently he's this very good Italian filmmaker. And for some reason, whenever we were there, he would turn up and she would say, oh, sorry, I've got a film with Moresco. He's a big Italian director, and we were just Kim and we weren't anything particularly important. And then he would say, oh, you've got pink hair, so you have to change it. So she would change her hair for him. So you can see in the film, every time Moresco came, she would change her hair colour. And I would say, I love the pink Letizia. Well, it's too bad, and Moresco wants brown. So there was very much this hierarchy. But I was quite comfortable in it in a way, because it meant we were like kind of this family that was a bit annoying, and then we would turn up and she would say things, and I think most of the time she thought, this will never be in a film, this will never be, an audience will never see this. I can really have a good time and talk about running away and the aunt coming and checking the bed, That's like something in Africa, that thing. The friends of mine in Africa that happens to, you have to see if there's blood, and if not, in some countries you get shot. I don't know if that probably happens in Sicily as well, I don't know. But I don't know if that happened to anybody here, I hope not.
Yes?
Oh.
Hi. No, they have it. No, it's up.
Sorry. There's somebody up there.
Oh, sorry, don't. You could be next.
I wanted to ask about the video archive used in the film. It's coming from up here.
Oh, right, the video archive. Oh, I'm glad you asked that, because what I've noticed about Italian cinema, and I don't know if it's the same in Slovenia, they had beautiful documentaries, like the tuna fish, the Matanza, like the volcano. There was beautiful documentary footage that was done, I think, in the 60s, 70s, that we found. And then, but the Italian TV, the sort of news and the TV was really chopped, and it had music over it, So you could, for example, in Falcone's funeral, what was really interesting about that was you had to piece it from all these different archives of different TV, because nobody filmed it as it was. They talk over it. That's how it was. And what we wanted with the archive, I don't know if it worked or not, we didn't want to keep showing you pictures of mafia or film of mafia or murders. We wanted to do something that was very Sicilian, but actually represented the Matanza. And actually when they kill those fish, they call it the Matanza. They corral them. And that was to go with Rina and all the people that he killed in that terrible, when he went mad and killed all those different people. Don't mean mad, but And actually that makes me think, the thing I love about when Rina comes into the court is when she says, oh, this man we were so afraid of, this scruffy, Calfone, isn't it? Like a moron, she calls him. And I love that because she disrespects him. And in a way, it's the best way of fighting them, because it's one way of fighting them. Because I think in the mafia films, we kind of celebrate them and we revere them in The Godfather. They're definitely not scruffy morons, So, but we went through archive of documentaries, we went through newsreel, we went through police movies. When at the end when they get Provenzano, that's an actual police film. So we went through all these different, because we were trying to make a film that was fun to watch, that wasn't too much just news. We were trying to get different, and then we did fiction. I don't know if you realise that the Anna film at the beginning was fiction, because when we showed it in America, this woman's I was so upset I had to lie down. She said, "Why was Leticia dancing in the front?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "In the club, was she a dancer?" I said, "Oh no, that was fiction." But she said, "Oh, why didn't you tell me that it was, she wanted," so we were going to put that it was a
These were
fiction.
the Italian movies that you used for her love story?
Yes, the Italian movie that we used. Did you all realise it was a fiction? That's good. In America they did.
The last thing, did she have any personal video archive that you also used?
Yes, the bits of her with the rose at the beginning is her personal archive. All the bits of her, and we tried to show it was her movies by having the bit that has the whole, the thing so you can see it's the end of the film, at the beginning of the film. And then all the little bits of her as a young girl, her with her husband, those are all her personal archives. But it took months to get it because it was a part of her life she didn't want to find. So we had to go through and plead with her, "Please, Leticia, can we have," it took a long time really. And I think, you saw, I'm so glad you met her this evening because she is sometimes she gives me a look and say, "Kim, what have you done?" So she's still a little bit cross about it. Did you like the Matanza of the tuna fish? Did you like watching? I can't eat fish anymore now.
Some other movie already did that to me. No, I think it was strong. Yeah, I like the way how different archive material was used.
Oh, good. I'm really pleased.
Was played with the viewer. Yeah.
Really, thank you. Because I've been so upset about. Anyway, never mind. You don't want to know about me.
So there was a gentleman.
Well, not really, pretty much the same thing, but I was especially impressed with the way that you used the old Italian realist movies to create the entire, instead of going through her childhood, because you didn't have very much.
We didn't have yeah.
But only the Italian realist movies of the late 40s and 50s could serve up and to present a whole ambiance that's almost a good substitute for a real life.
Thank you. And we also wanted it to be a little bit funny because the scene with the father when he comes in and she takes his jacket and he's at the table with all the kids, and we wanted, hopefully it was to try and give a sense of what it was like at that time. It was actually very much like, we didn't have all that many kids, it was just me and my sister. But we used to have dinner like that with my father coming in, sitting at the head of the table, nobody talking, waiting until he said we could start eating. And it was very much like that when I was a kid growing up, and my mother would take his jacket. So he just wanted to have that feeling. And my dad used to like Caruso, so I remember when I first heard it, it just took me right back to, just feeling afraid all the time. And I think it's a very much a kind of feeling we wanted to give, but also we wanted it to be a little bit funny, that you could laugh at it a little bit because maybe it makes you feel a bit better about it. I don't know. But you didn't think that was Leticia, right? Leticia's funny. Good. Oh, good. Well, it's fun. It's right audience, so maybe. Yeah.
Any questions? No? So, Kim, tell us about, because I said this before to you, it's also a film about love, about finding love, really.
Yes.
Yeah. Giving love to Borsellino and
yes.
Darko.
Yes. It's a kind of answer to the mafia in a way, really. Because I don't know if any of you've grown up in families that are sort of, I don't know, but you always look so well adjusted somehow, but somehow fresh-faced and happy. But anyway, my dad really loved the mafia, and he looked up to them in a way. And I think for my dad, the reason he loved them was because they were against all the people that he was against. Because my dad was very suspicious of, well, if you walked in the street and there was a man being a little bit, having fun or being a bit, dressed a bit flamboyantly, he would get very angry. So he didn't like gay men, he didn't like black people, he didn't like Jewish people, he didn't like anybody except him, really. So it was like a family built on hate. And it's really interesting growing up in a family built on hate, because you realise how unhappy everybody is. It must have been horrible for him to be angry all the time. You know, he was just always angry, and the whole house was like that. And so once I started really finding out about the mafia, I realised that actually the strongest thing against it was the way that Patricija took her photos. And these people, when Falcone says, look, don't worry, if I die, somebody will take my place, and Borsellino says how he loves Falcone, that's the opposite of the mafia. And that's, in a way, what we were trying to do with the film. We weren't only trying to show what they were like, we were trying to show a different world that, you know, and that all the young people demonstrating, and that people together can fight, you know, because if you build something on hate, and if you build that you're always afraid of other people, and you always hate other people, it's how you were able to traffic women, it's how you're able to have wars, to wipe out a whole people, because somehow that you would think they're not proper people. You know the scene with Luciano Liggio? I remember when I was watching that for the first time, and he says, oh, the people that murder, they're the people that really suffer. The people we murder, oh, they're not real people. They're men whose wives have left them. They're not real men. So in a way, they don't deserve to live. It's that thinking that the only people that deserve to live are the men of honour. Or it could be all the Germans, you know, the Aryans, or the, you know, the white people in Africa, or you know, whatever it is. It's you have one special people, and then you can do what you want. That's what it made me think, really. So I think we can, what we have is that we can show that we have nice lives. We don't have to be for the pay. Does that sound completely mad? I don't know, so I thought you were all thinking, oh, she's talking rubbish. Anyway.
Question? So, the film is traveling around.
Yes.
It should be
yes.
now be in the London Film Festival, but you're
Yes,
here.
yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for all staying, and you probably want to go to bed now. Was it quite a hard watch? Was it alright? It wasn't too much? You probably got it. Okay, good. Because I like Patricija, I'm a little bit afraid of the film, because I hope it's not making people, I hope it inspires people that there's someone like her could exist, and that people together we can change things, you know, not make us feel depressed and you know, and sad. That's what I hope it makes you feel. A bit sad too, probably.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you
so much
Thank
for
you.